Okay, should be live now. Alright, hello, it's me, Mandala. I'm back again to touch on some lore that I think is getting a lot of flack right now, and a lot of heated conversation is happening over a few topics of lore that came up with the most recent patch in Gayala Delve. And so I wanted to go back through some of this lore, specifically concerning one character that keeps getting brought up a lot, which is Cinder Steeltemper, one of the Charr from the Steel War band in Icebrood Saga. And I wanted to ask the question of, is the community complaint justified that she was not a relevant enough character that the commander should have cared enough about um, from that era of the game to be included in this Gala Dove arc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through and replay a couple of the story instances from the Icebrood Saga, and then play some select parts of the What Lies Within missions, and we're going to determine at the end of the chapters of the playthrough, was Cinder an okay choice? Was she even a good choice? And is it justified for players to say, we don't know who this character is, we shouldn't be expected to know who this character is, and they didn't fit this emotional beat for the Gayala Delve mission. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off in the middle of the Icebrood Saga with the Visions of the Past story stuff. And so when this patch released, to set the scene, we had been in Grothmar, and then we had gone to Bjora Marches, where we fought with Drakkar and the Whisper of Jormag. And at the end of that saga, we were in the cave with the Whisper of Jormag, right? And Ryland and Ritlock, Krisha, Bangar. And then Bangar used Air's bow and shot us, right? And so at the end of that instance, we end up getting dragged back to the Eye of the North, where Oreen keeps us alive, and we begin a recovery journey, right? So we're just waiting in the Eye of the North, recovering while a lot of events are happening off screen. And during this time, Oreen is trying to figure out her best plan of action as a new Elder Dragon. Like, what can she do to mitigate or help us solve this problem? And so we're going to start with the Visions of the Past story episode, and we're going to go through and we're going to play that. And I think this is the first introduction to Cinder as a character, like, in a legit way. She was in the Grothmar Valley story patches, but it was very minor, and I don't think you should be expected to know who she was from those. But I think at this point in the story is where she gets truly introduced as a character, and you'll see why, in my opinion, she is a prominent character, and prominent enough to do a story beat about later on. But we'll be the judge of that at the end of this journey. So I'm going to start this instance, right? And so we're in the Eye of the North. We're waiting around, just trying to recover from being shot with an arrow. And now we're going to go through and we're going to play. We're going to get summoned by Oreen because she learned something. She has something she wants to show us.
Champion, I've peered into the abyss of time during your absence. There's something you should see.
Alright, so she's peered into the abyss of time. There's something we should see, and so we need to go consult Oreen. So travel to the Eye of the North and meet Oreen. We're already here because we're waiting here. In the lore, we've just been chilling here, kind of recovering, dealing with stuff. And here's Ritlock, and we can talk to Ritlock. Or here. Or maybe we can't.
Looks like you're ready to get back to it, Commander. We'll make Bangar regret his piss-poor aim. I need to talk to you, but Oreen said she's got something important to show you. Go ahead and finish your business with Oreen. I think she wants you to bathe in that pool or something. Do what you gotta do. I won't make it weird.
Yeah, already did, bud. But anyway. Alright, so now we're over here, and that's not related to this chapter, I don't think.
Your wounds have mended.
Still a bit sore. Can't wait to return the favor to Bangar.
His army grows as more Charr defect to his cause. In time, he will march north and awaken Jormag. Tyrians who align themselves with elder dragons historically bring disaster. Present company excluded. Jormak's motives are unknowable, even to me. Will they end the cycle of rebirth, or will they bring...
Annihilation?
I searched the scrying pool for answers, combing through visions of the past for some way to break the cycle. I haven't found any, but I witnessed something interesting, and I want you to see it.
Alright, so Oreen's been in the scrying pool, kind of shifting through the history of time and viewing past
I thought the
events.
Luxons and Kurzix didn't get along. But you two see...
Stop talking. This is the problem when you play Revenant during story, and then you try to sit still for 2 seconds, they just start talking to you. But, yeah, so we're going to go into the scrying pool, and we're going to view a vision that Oreen thinks is important. And so, to get a little meta here, it's an instance that developers think are important for you to understand the next chapter of the story, but we're going to go in and we're going to play this instance now. And we're going to do the public for Forging Steel because we can.
Aren't you the sorriest bunch of recruits I've ever laid eyes on? Report to Centurion Steelcatcher for work details.
Alright, so the first thing we see is Cinder here. When we log in, we load in, and so we're in a vision of the past right now via the scrying pool, and so we are a member of the Steel War Band, right? So we're a recruit. So what does it says? Sorriest bunch of recruits. Report to Centurion Steelcatcher for work details. And so Centurion Steelcatcher is Ryland, but we are currently playing as a Charr recruit with the Steel Warband, and here's Cinder, who's one of the Steel Warband. She says, clear out the hostiles in the woods while I carve the rest of them up at camp. What are we up against? Svanir meatheads trying to take pot shots at us. We upset their leaders' feelings by encroaching on their domain. Let's see him use those fancy words with an axe in his skull. What do you want me to do? Clear out the hostiles, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Big words, runt. I'll believe it when I see it. Get moving. I'm timing you.
Show me what you got.
So this is like a hybrid public mission that was like a mix between a strike mission and a DRM. It was kind of like a hybrid instance in that regard, like a hybrid piece of content where they really weren't sure what they wanted to do, I don't think, in terms of strike missions and stuff yet, and they were just experimenting, and so this was kind of the prototype for Dragon Response missions, which ended up not being very great content, in my opinion. Some people, but so there's lots of different challenge modes in this, and it scales pretty well with the amount of people you have in the instance, and so it's pretty soloable. I think there's another person in here because we have extra progress on our bar when we came in, but you can solo this instance if you need to. So this is kind of the pre-event. It's time, so even if we don't finish everything, it'll be done in 4 minutes.
It's my turn.
Recruits, back to base. Enemies at the gate. Not too shabby, but I prefer a more direct approach. Down for the count.
the Sons of Spire making a bunch of noises. But as you can see, this instance is pretty soloable because I think it scales with the number of players in here, and so we could get more players show up. Most people aren't playing this, to be honest, right now. I doubt we'll get any friends, but there we go. We helped Cinder. So this is what she looks like. She's got a really cool facial design with the like red. I don't know if it's a mask or if it's just like war paint. Is my guess. Is that she's like painted her face red to be more menacing. She's got like a flamethrower kit on her back. All right. Let's help out. Somebody did Renoa, I think. We can help out Vishen. I guess it's Vishen. So you can see we're a Charr right now, even though I'm playing on a human character, because it's kind of like Fractals. We're just reliving a past event.
Hard. This'll be fun.
So this is just a sniper mission.
Sweet dreams.
So we're kind of just waiting for the timer, because as solo you can't really do it all in the span of time it's asking you to.
On your target.
Down for the count. For the Blood Legion!
So we got the Vishen one done, and yeah, so we're not going to get the, what's this called, the Nika Bar event done, but that's okay. We don't need to do all of them. And we'll explore more. We're about to get a lot of dialogue stuff, so I'll talk in and out of their exchanges with the Steel Warband as we go through this next part of the strike mission, DRM hybrid thing. So now our party's been locked, so there actually are people here. Okay, so we've got some people to play with.
Warband's ready to move out, Ryland.
Is that how you address your Centurion, soldier?
That promotion already going to your head, Chief?
He's a big shot now that he's Bangar's golden cub.
All right. Let's get a move on before we freeze our tails off.
Alright, so we know from this instance that this is after Ryland got promoted, so it's after the events of Bound by Blood. And so they're pushing through, I'll just spoil it, is they're pushing through this northern passage to bring like war machines and an army through this expanse up to the far north, the far Shiver Peaks, by Bangar's orders.
Area secure. Roll out.
And so this is all of Ryland's warband, and Ryland's here too as well, so you can see him over here. And one of those members is Cinder, who's his second in command.
This is what I'm talking about!
Don't get carried away, Cobb. Still got a mission to complete.
Mika, you're barely older than the rest of us.
Huh. I thought he was like a million years old.
Spill the chatter. We have incoming.
Who wants to go to a Metal Legion concert when this is all over with?
I'm not really into heavy metal.
It doesn't matter who's playing after you've slammed down 12 or so Nika bar specials.
Recruits. My panics are for medicinal purposes, and not to be abused for any psychoactive side effects.
Sure thing, Nika.
So these are a bunch of
I have a visual on the enemy. Snipers to my position.
Narcotic using Charr. Taking some special supplements.
Down for the count.
Forgive my gameplay, I'm just kind of chilling, not really paying attention. But, because we're here for the story mostly, so I'm just playing this kind of way too easy Vindicator build.
Right on target.
Area secure. Roll out. Down for the count. Another corpse for the pile.
Alright, that took a while. Sometimes you have to, like, convince the Devourer to move.
Keep the tank moving.
Another corpse for the pile.
So along this path, we're finding a lot of Icebrood, which is interesting because it was kind of at the end of so before this instance, we were fighting Drakkar in Drakkar Lake, right, with the Whisper of Jormag and stuff. So this is kind of the first introduction of the Icebrood threat since Jormag was put to sleep back in season 3. So that's why we're finding all these Icebrood and Champion Icebrood and kind of big baddies. So there's some that's just spawning over here in the little area we were before, but there's more just like kind of bestial Icebrood up here.
Put the flamethrower away, Cinder. You're scaring the recruits.
Down for the count.
Again.
They'll be fine. Gotta teach them the pecking order.
Alright, so there's Cinder again talking. And we're here to kind of focus on her interactions in the story.
You really believe all that stuff Bangar's selling?
Well, what's wrong with wanting to be one Charr? I mean, I think that sounds like a good thing.
We're an independent warband, fighting for a breakaway legion under a rogue imperator. That sound like one Charr to you?
We're a kick-ass independent warband fighting for whatever you just said.
Ryland, you agree with me, right? I get orders and I follow them. That's what a soldier does.
Alright, so he's talking about how Bangar's kind of doing a coup, a little bit with the Charr. So they're part of a breakaway legion, so they're not necessarily part of the whole United Legions construct, right? The four legions coming together. Bangar's kind of broken away and ditched his relations with the other leaders of the Charr. And so Nikobar's commenting on how they're not like on this like holy mission really. It's kind of a farce. They're kind of they aren't necessarily on the right side. He doesn't really, the black and white doesn't really mess with him though, because he was part of the like renegades who were like trying to prevent peace talks with the Charr and the humans until he realized that it was kind of not cool and not what he wanted to do. And so now he just follows Ryland and is part of this warband.
Cover the tank, recruits! Down for the count.
So here we're racing Cinder to kill tar elementals, and that's part of the like combat part. This instance is really easy and slow if you don't have any of the challenge modes on, but that's kind of the nature of the beast here. Is the idea is that it's got incremental difficulty via stackable challenges, and so this instance can be really hard if you want it to be, but that's why the gameplay is kind of slow while we're doing it here for story at the lowest level in the public, is because people need to be able to get through it who aren't necessarily interested in the combat systems of this game. And like I am one of the people who's kind of interested. I wouldn't say I'm actually that interested in the combat system of this game. I think I'd play it even if the combat wasn't amazing, but I've been forced to be interested in the combat system to have opinions, so rip me. But anyway,
high in protein, recruits, in their legs, and a little crunch.
not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to be informed, but so that's what we're doing here when it comes to story.
I think the tank will make it through that storm, Chief.
If we cut through the ruins, we can avoid the blizzard altogether.
Those ruins belong to the Stone Summit dwarves. Slavers. Cannibals. Performers of profane rituals. Oh, who knows what monstrosities lurk in these ancient, almost certainly haunted ruins.
Baishi, we didn't prep for an evil dwarf excursion.
I'll send up
Stay
a flare
safe out
for
there.
reinforcements.
No flare. Vanguard trusted us to handle this on our own. That's what we're gonna do.
So Vaishin was mentioning the history of not the Dutchmore dwarves, the Stone Summit dwarves in this area, who kind of were trying to, they're like the nasty dwarves, right? If the Sylvari are the Nightmare Court and the regular Sylvari, the dwarves are the Stone Summit dwarves, which are like similar to the Nightmare Court, and then there's the regular dwarves, the good dwarves, which are the Deldrimor. So these dwarves are like, did a bunch of nasty, evil magics and didn't like other races and stuff, very xenophobic. And one of their ruins is what we're trying to go through to avoid the winter storm out here.
It's my turn. No. Get us through that door.
Thought you'd never asked.
Have the target. Alright, so we kind of have to get in here and do this deal.
For the Black Legion!
Let's break the warding seals. Somebody locked them in here.
Bring down the gate!
Now we're going to use the CC, which nobody knows how to do. It's kind of a weird mechanic here, but here we go. And I don't know why I get silver every time.
Gates open! Steel warband, move in!
We've done some stupid things before,
Down for the
but
count!
this is something else.
I think you made your point, Cinder. Put the flamethrower away.
Ah, I was just getting started!
Alright, so Cinder's being very overzealous with her flamethrower. Very aggro. so this kind of like warmongery thing kind of plays really well into her character. I feel like she is very like kind of down with the whole like combat and glory stuff, even though she's probably
Something's not happy with us.
she's probably got more nuance than that. If you look into, she has a whole collection that goes along with learning
There's a
her
vantage
story
point this way.
that comes along with this episode. So we have to come up here and do the Vishan sniper thing to progress. And so you can see that this mission is kind of to set up these characters, right? The Steel Warband characters who we've not interacted with much outside of Ryland, and I guess get us to have some sympathy for them, or just like some understanding of like their history and role. I'm getting nuked here.
Right between the eyes.
Super lame. One more on this little spot. That actually doesn't work until we break his shield, so. And so we're just building a rapport with these
We can get to
characters, right? I want to keep this moving. I think you have to be around it for it to move. Our friends are up there, but
Aren't these dwarves supposed to be
There
as
we go.
big?
Don't ask me. This was your plan.
Alright, so they're mentioning that the Stone Summit dwarves, like everybody thought they were gone, because we haven't seen dwarves in a long time, but these ones are kind of like crazy, screaming. And if you look at their model, they've got like glowy red eyes, and they kind of just look like
There's too many of these damn dwarves.
they're not really very like personable anymore.
Great.
They don't seem to be alive. What kind of magic is this? I don't know.
Magic or not, a tank blast to the face works just the same.
So, alright, so we have to go do this Vishan thing. We're helping out the baby players here. We don't necessarily know the mechanics. They're definitely making it take a little longer, I think, with the scaling, but that's okay. And so they mentioned the dwarves, they're not really alive, they're just kind of exist by some magic that they messed with, and there's lore books in this map that tell you the story of how they kind of sought power through Primordus and a ritual to be connected to Primordus, and that backfired for them.
This'll be fun. Sweet dreams.
Alright. Good stuff.
Area secure. Hold up.
So there's the dwarf. So the Charr really don't know what the deal is with them. They're just kind of passing through, getting to their next objective on their mission to follow Bangar's orders and get this tank through to the north, through all the mountains. And so at this point, I can say that like we don't necessarily have a lot of interaction with Cinder here, but the kind of point of this mission is just to be like a little like teaser, to be like to get us to understand who these characters are a little better. We've talked with Ryland a lot, and so this is just the warband that he always talks about and what their deal is. And so this patch is filled with a lot of cool collections and things to do in this mission to learn more about these characters and their past. And the collections are actually really deep. They're some of the bigger, more some of the deeper collections in the game in terms of storytelling and character progression. And so you can talk to a lot of NPCs about these characters around the Charr homelands in Ascalon and stuff, and there's lots to do there. So if I like go in here, go Visions of Steel and Fire, so we go, so this one, right? So this is Cinder. Collect items related to Cinder Steeltemper's history to earn her signature Steel Warband sword. So I've done most of these. I'm not really an achievement hunter necessarily, but they're just a lot of things that tell you more about her story and her past. And I wouldn't expect.
Even the wildlife's unhappy with our little intrusion.
Why do you sound excited?
Who's gonna kill more Skelk than me? Give it your best shot.
Alright, so we're challenging Cinder again as recruits in this warband. She's gonna make us try to beat her in this Skelk killing competition. And so yeah, so there's lots of collections and supporting content outside of this specific story mission to help you learn more about these Charr and their past and history and etc. And so while I wouldn't expect someone who's like very casually playing through story to engage with that content, it is there, and there's a lot to it, and it's actually really good quality MMO stuff to do, like Guild Wars 2's versions of quests, of side quests, right? So
I'll get the barbecue going.
Keep the tank moving.
So this is kind of just the like desolate land where the Stone Summit dwarves used to reside. It's kind of just a wasteland, empty, snowy, with all these weird, like not really alive dwarves who are connected to some power that we're not quite yet aware of. And so we'll eventually come to learn that they did a ritual to bind themselves to Primordus that was...
These are good ingredients for my special brews.
That was part of the Guild Wars 1 story with the last Stone Summit dwarf, Hierophant, which is their leader. Their like spiritual leader, kind of.
We do this on our own.
So Ryland's being obstinate. He wants to prove himself, and that's a common theme for him and his character, is like the need to like...
I have a visual on the enemy. Snipers to my position.
The need to like stand out and seek approval and not require anyone's help, because he's kind of felt like the pressure of his lineage and expectations on him from other people, and there's people using him a lot as like an indirect means of achieving their goals and their like ideological missions and ancestral missions, right? Kind of they talk about how Bangar and Rytlock have a relationship that's very similar to Ryland and Bangar. Bangar's been more harsh. Ryland's been a more willing participant in Bangar's disinformation campaign because he's very much about leadership and stuff. And like a thing that a lot of people don't realize about Rytlock is he's a very he's almost like a lore nerd kind of. Like he's very interested in like magics and history of the Charr and human relations and artifacts and stuff like that. And so he wasn't buying what Bangar was selling. But he.
You know how hard it is to steer this thing?
But he got sent away by Bangar, and so he couldn't control kind of the politicization, the what do I call it? Disinformation, the propaganda that Ryland was consuming under Bangar and under his tutelage, and Krisha really wasn't very much help in that regard. Necessarily, because she kind of is like a no complaints person. She's like my past was so bad, like I just don't have anything to complain about here, and so she doesn't really understand. She's not as willing to fight with authority, and maybe fight with authority is the wrong way. She's just she's like a Charr's Charr, if that makes sense. The like similarities to that phrase, if that phrasing makes sense to anybody.
Let the rain soothe you.
Another corpse for the pile.
So here we have another timed little survive the onslaught phase, and then we'll go into this final boss here in just a second. So this will be the longest, like slowest part, because it's with a lot of content like this, it's paced in a way to where you can't like farm it too hard. And it's also got a lot of story and moving parts and NPCs that need to talk and have dialogue, and so like I'm sure it's like a very like a tour de force of like the programming of this instance and how it works, and all these different NPCs that have to move through this like giant space and deliver dialogue and tell story and deal with players doing stuff and different challenge modes changing how things work and all that. And so it's like it's awesome party mode, but yeah, but when we're playing it, it feels slow. So when there's no challenge modes on it, but just explaining why that is. It's not because it's like poorly made. It's actually because it's very well made. And very interconnected and intricate design for story.
The tank can't swim.
There's gotta be a way to get that bridge working, recruits.
Alright, so Cinder's telling us there's gotta be a way to get the bridge working, and so we're gonna go and we're gonna hit these runes, and that's gonna raise the bridge. Let's hope we don't get murdered by this sulfurous stuff, too. There we go. So we regret our mission through the Dwarven Ruins, and now we're about to really regret it. There's Ryland, Cinder, Icebrood, Vishen, and then Renoa's driving the tank.
I think you know what I'm about to say.
Shoot the damn flare.
Alright, so Ryland finally gave in and realized they might need some help here, because the dwarves have found this ancient forgement and powered it up to try to take us out. So this model's super cool. It's they refurbished it from the Sorrow's Embrace dungeon, where we originally saw these in Guild Wars 2. It was part of Guild Wars 1 initially, and they remade the Forgeman for a fight in Sorrow's Embrace, one of the original dungeon fights. But then this model is just very much more involved and fluid and better animations, more pixels. I feel like it's very cool. It's probably one of the coolest looking models in the game, but it's part of this instance that was kind of there's not a lot of replay value to this mission once you. I mean, there is, but it's just like not very rewarding, and so there's not too much reason to come back here. So there's stuff we should be doing, but it's kind of just everything's on a timer, kind of, and that's part of the reason why it's not a valuable mission to repeat necessarily, is because and people do repeat it. Like, it does have rewards, but it's not exactly the most engaging thing for the amount of rewards you get, and so people don't really replay it that much. The beauty of the instances is the story component. So now we're gonna CC it. Once we CC it, it loses this huge defensive buff, and so we can start doing a lot of damage to it. And it'll take 2 tries because we've got people who don't know what's going on here. Right. Could even take us 3. So we're just in a battle, and Cinder's kind of the leader here. So she's telling us what to do. As long as we keep the tank alive and we stay alive, we can't really fail in the instance. So I'm trying to get more ammo so that I can use the thing. Use the tank for the combat.
I can feel your rage. Calling reinforcements. Take out the portal.
So you can start to see the Primordius visual connection here with these doors, with all the flame portals and the fiery stuff going on here. And so, and we also learned in the Sorrow's Embrace dungeon that these ancient forgemen can be powered up with dragon minions, and so the indication is that like Primordius stuff is going on here. If you like really know the lore, you realize, oh, Primordius stuff. All right, so maybe we'll get it. Who knows? Oh, we did. Nice. There we go. Goodbye, ancient forgeman. See you later.
Steel and fire, baby!
Guess we didn't need the flare after all.
Never a doubt in my mind. Everybody okay?
We're all in one piece.
Alright, so we defeated the forgeman. We didn't actually need the flare, but we did send it off, so reinforcements are going to come and talk to us. Actually, that reward's pretty good. Maybe people should be doing this. There we go. Alright, so here Ryland and Cinder are going to go talk to Bangar.
Imperator Runebringer! Eyes front!
At ease, soldiers. Centurion Steelcatcher. We were expecting the tank at Biora's Pass. Complications with the storm, sir. Had to take a detour. If you had everything under control, why the distress signal? Miscalculation, sir. I see. The storms hit us pretty hard, so Centurion Steelcatcher and I will find an alternate route through the pass.
I can provide a security detail, sir.
The Imperator's given his orders. Stand by and await further instructions, soldier.
So Cinder's really loyal, but she kind of wants to be there to protect Ryland. So when I said that she's like zealous, she's like very combat oriented and she's like a fighter, but I think she is more questioning of Bangar than Ryland is, and so she kind of wanted to be there, but she couldn't with
What
the
is it,
orders.
recruit?
So what is it? Things got pretty rough back there.
Centurion Steelcatcher and I appreciate you stepping up to help with our unforeseen obstacles. That's how it goes sometimes. Field conditions change, and we have to adapt. The Farrar doesn't teach you everything. Ryland's usually more cautious, though. He's been pushing us harder lately. And the warband's up to the challenge, but it just means we have to be better. The Steel Warband's earned its reputation, and we intend on keeping it. If you ever need any advice, I'll be here.
Alright, and so the dynamic here is kind of interesting because we're just reliving like a recruit's memory of this exchange, but it helps to like establish like a sympathy and kind of a relationship between our commander character and these new Steel Warband characters, and so there should be more dialogue here. What's the deal with you and the Centurion?
Well, aren't you a nosy little recruit? Ryland and I came up in the Farrar together. He bailed us out more times than I can count. He's always trying to do what's right. That's why he's got our loyalty.
Alright, so she's loyal to Ryland because they grew up together and he was part of their like comeuppance and the leader of their little ragtag team growing up. And so all of them here eventually got recruited at later times into the Steel Warband after Cinder because she was always his friend growing up. So that's her role in this group. And so you can get this dialogue with all of these Charr here in this warband and get more and learn more about them and their relationship and how they became part of Steel Warband and all this stuff. And then you can also do all their collections. All 5 of them, including Ryland, have a collection I think that you can do in here in the Visions of Steel and Fire. So you can do Renoa, Nikabar, Vaishin, Cinder, and then did I do Ryland? Ryland's probably got other stuff. I don't remember if he has one of these. Oh, yep, he does. Here it is. I did this one. I guess because I wanted. I don't know why I did this one. Right. Anyway, okay, and so the instance continues, and we'll be going a lot faster now because we won't have to wait for stupid, boring, like, slow combat stuff. And so the instance continues with Ryland and Bangar going into Darkroom Delves, and our point of view is going to change. And so now we're going to be actually in Ryland's shoes in this instance.
You seemed quite comfortable out there. A natural, Centurion.
I picked up a thing or two from you.
You're certainly a much better student than Brimstone. So much wasted potential.
He doesn't know how to follow orders, from what I've heard.
Damn right. Times are changing. Never know who you can count on these days. I need tribunes at my side who believe in the future I'm building.
I'll do what it takes to prove myself.
That's what I like to hear. Not at all like your sire.
So he's been engaging in this kind of like weird psychological war with Ryland to kind of make him more subservient and kind of not like Ritlock, kind of make him untrusting of others.
Sealed up. It'll take something strong to get through this.
Let me have a crack at it.
So we get some special... I think it's the 2 that melts it.
A Charr made so often. Better than the real thing.
It does a lot of damage. So we'll phase in and out of the using this, using our own weapons.
Open.
So we have to use this too to kind of push the...
I could get through this.
Here, we're gonna listen to Bangar first. Yep, I guess he doesn't talk until we get this open. We're gonna be like, oh, there's a gear missing.
I can get through this. Not bad.
Oh, not yet. That happens later, I guess.
There's something I want to ask. This Elder Dragon, how are we gonna tame it? Improvisation. If the commander can do it, it can't be that hard. You think the bow will be enough? The bow is a rallying cry. The Ice Dragon will know a true champion when it sees one. So Dragon serves champion? Or does champion serve dragon? Jormag will serve me. My Charr Imperium will reach from the Shiver Peaks to Kantha.
And so here you see Ryland understand, like, Banger kind of hints at what'll happen in the future. He's like, the dragon will recognize a true champion, and he understands the dynamic of champions better because he's already in this, like, subservient role, and he's been trained and, like, indoctrinated into it.
Find her! Guess we aren't the only ones here. Who are they after? I'm wondering that myself. Get this gate open.
And so this is the first hint of where we could see maybe Ryland said, I wonder if I could be the champion instead of Bangar.
Nothing happened. Piece of junk's missing a gear. Get the lever fixed so we can move on. Bangar's always dangling another opportunity. But if I play my cards right...
Yeah, so here, he actually just says it outright. He's like, Bangar's always trying to, like, hold something over him and get him to do something else in anticipation of his next promotion or his next rise up. And so he's kind of just tired of this now, I guess. And he's ready to make his own way. And he sees this opportunity here with Jormag.
Are there any more of you? The Vigil needs our...
Amora, what are you doing here?
Svanir bastards kidnapped me and Javi. Slaughtered the others. They surrendered to Jormag's whispers.
Whispers? The Svanir are Norn savages. Troglodytes, nothing more.
There's no time for this. They still have Javi. Help me save the Vigil.
Yeah.
Lost. All because of Jormag's seduction.
Imperator Ruinbringer has a plan to subdue Jormag. We'll bring the dragon to heel.
What did you just say?
You heard him. I'm gonna become Jormag's champion. Bend it to my will.
That's not possible.
There's no time for this. You want us to save your precious Vigil or not?
So Amora, we know from our previous patches that she was running away from the Sons of Svanir at this point, and so Javi had just helped her escape, and she was going to get help, and she was going to meet her in Darkheim
There's
Dell.
no switch here. I'll find it.
But they didn't end up meeting up because Javi got taken somewhere else, and so this is where Amora was kind of on her own, getting chased by the Svanir for the ruins, and that's where we meet. So this is the Whisper in the Dark patch timeline is what's happening here in the events of the story. And so Almora's interested in getting Bangar to help her save the Vigil, and so Bangar's doing what Rylan just said, dangling an opportunity in front of her, is like, hey, you should come help us get through this ruin so that we'll come help the Vigil. And he has no intention of helping the Vigil. He's very much only interested in helping himself. And so now we're going to get separated from them because dwarves.
The one up here is broken. Useless dwarves. Find another way, Centurion. We'll meet at the exit.
Bangar, we need to talk.
What is it this time? Those two have some kind of history. That's going to complicate things.
So he recognizes the kind of toxic dynamic those two have and that things aren't going well, so he's kind of in a rush to get back to Bangar at this point. So we're in this cool little...
What exactly have you been telling him?
The truth.
Your truth. The Vigil, the Pact. We aren't the enemy.
You aren't allies either. Not with that dragon at the commander's disposal.
Alright, so Almora's commenting on the fact that we're kind of indoctrinated into Bangar's little war games cult thing. And she's saying that they're not the enemy, that we should be allies, and he's not, and Bangar doesn't care.
You haven't changed a bit. Always seeing monsters where there are none.
At least my eyes are open. The war with the humans nearly killed us off. Funny how you all forget that.
You forget what you did to our son. Poisoned his will with your bottomless hate. How many more will die like Ajax?
Don't you dare say his name. He sacrificed himself for the Charr, while you were off gallivanting with anyone but.
Kiss my hairy ass!
This is getting out of hand. I better get over there before they claw each other's eyes out.
And so, Bangar's stuck in the past, right? He remembers back when the humans were warring with the Charr and how that almost destroyed the Charr, and they were almost eradicated by the humans. And so he's hung up on that. And so peace is really not peace, and like a future coexisting with the humans isn't really an option in Bangar's mind. And so he's indoctrinated a bunch of Charr into that philosophy, and it's not hard to do because they kind of already have that built into their society with all the like anti-human rhetoric and stuff from the past. You can see it in the Black Citadel even from the base game. And so Ryland's part of that, and they mentioned Ajax, who was the son of the cub, I guess, of Almora and Bangar, who was a renegade Charr working in, I think it was either the Fields of Ruin. I think it was the Fields of Ruin or the Bladrid Steppes, and it was a Vigil mission from the core story. And we realized that it was Almora's son who became a renegade, and like so they're the like Charr who don't want to have peace with the humans. And Bangar views that, he kind of lets slip his philosophy a little bit there. He views that as like being like for the Charr. Like Ajax was a hero of the Charr working to progress Charr interests, and so he kind of let slip that he's kind of a anti-peace leader. He doesn't want peace with the humans. combat, more Icebrood.
Your plan is insane. The last thing Tyrion needs is another raging Elder Dragon.
An Elder Dragon on a leash. My leash.
You won't listen to reason. I can't let you do this.
Can't let me? You can't stop me.
So now Mommy and Daddy are fighting. And Almora's being an absolute badass with this little ring of guardian magic. And so we're like, oh no, Vanguard's in trouble. We're trying to get to them as quickly as we can to maybe defuse the situation.
4 of you? I don't have time for this.
And remember, through this whole experience, we are the commander reliving these events as Ryland via the scrying pool. And so it's just this weird dynamic of like just experiencing Ryland's actual emotions about this incident and like what he's feeling kind of and like how it's affecting him. And just setting the stage for events to come and like what his position as a character is for the Charr Civil War patches in Drizzlewood Coast.
Ryland! She's lost her mind.
Stand down, Ryland.
I'm sworn to protect my Imperator.
Wrong choice.
So now she's gonna beat us up because we're like still indoctrinated in this like Charr rhetoric. So Almora's gonna fight us. This is actually one of the harder boss fights in the game because Almora just hits like a truck for no reason. And she roots people. But we're running a trait where we can unroot ourselves with movement abilities, so it's not that big of a deal for us. But we're supposed to CC her, and then we can deal more damage. She's gonna try to root us. Because we're in like full Celestial gear right now, and she's still hitting us like pretty good. And she's got protection, which is annoying. It's something I hope they stop doing. It's just giving like random protection uptime to NPCs because it's just like Boonstrip's not really like a fun thing to run in story instances in open world, in my opinion. Alright, so CC her again. I guess it didn't take. I think we're being too slow with the CC, or I'm being too slow. But you can see that this is kind of very Willbender themed, so they kind of had this idea for the Willbender already at this time in the Icebrood Saga. They knew kind of what they were doing here. So maybe if
You won't win this.
Alright.
I do not yield.
So we got some epic music, fight with Almora, who, again, this is such an interesting microcosm of, like, psychological madness for the commander to experience, like, this ally that we've had, especially, I think my commander that I'm using right now is a Vigil, so it's, like, this super strange dynamic of, like, being Ryland and wanting to protect Bangar, which we don't like Bangar at all as the commander, really, at this point, but also being here with Almora and fighting her. So we're supposed to CC her there, because if you're on a real build, you take like infinite damage from that attack.
Let the rage soothe you.
But we're on like super OP, crazy build. So again, CC here, so that you don't get blown up. And we won. And now everything will be all good and dandy, right?
You were my fire, my blood.
I was nothing to you. The only one you care about is Bangar Ruinbringer.
Everything I've done is for the preservation of the Charred.
You'll be the end of the Charr.
No reasoning with a Gladium who betrays her own kind. She can't be saved. Make it quick. Is that the smartest move? She's a hero to a lot of Charr.
Another son you've lost.
You're more like your sire than I thought. Get rid of the body.
And so he's kind of weaponized, Bangar's weaponized this dynamic between Ryland and Ritlock, and like this like abandonment, this abandonment complex that he kind of has with him. And so you see here Ryland doesn't want to make this decision, but and so he kind of breaks the chain of command a little bit and doesn't follow orders here, even though he says that's what he's all about. And Bangar just kills Almor anyway, and he's not really a fan of that. So this is kind of like the breaking point, I feel like, between Bangar and Ryland, where the loyalty is the thinnest it's ever been between them, from Ryland's point of view. And so he's the most susceptible to outside influence and stimuli to go in a different direction that doesn't necessarily involve Bangar. But we're here as the commander reliving this, so we see how Almora dies now, because we just found her body in Darkrim Dells in the Biora March patch, the first one. And so now we know what happened here. So Bangar killed her, we did nothing about it, Ryland did nothing about it, and then we as the commander witnessed this and started to understand the Steel Warband and the dynamic of this war a lot better, just via our scrying pool knowledge, while we're healing in the Eye of the North.
Some must fight, so that all may be free.
Bangar's dangerous, as you've seen. He wants to subdue a dragon. Such hubris. I still don't know what Jormag's plan is, but Bangar must be stopped. The Imperators are gathering the Charr legions to meet Bangar on the battlefield. Speak with Ritlock. A great conflagration is coming, and I'm afraid my presence would only escalate matters. I won't be able to fight with you this time, champion. But I'll be here. And in the mists.
And so Irene's kind of recognized the necessity of her outside role here, and her not direct engagement here. And it's the same thing as with the gods and the other Elder Dragons, right? They're all just like larger than life and too big for these mortal conflicts. And so it's sometimes like a lot of people question like, why didn't they get involved with all these different things? And it's just like their involvement, even just from a magical, like just from a the like Tyrian magic lore, every time they get involved they kind of just add more stress to the system. And so that's one of the reasons why the gods and dragons don't always engage with all these little minor stuff. But also it's just like, would things get better if Aurene came in and solved the problem? And the answer is probably no, right? We would just exacerbate the ideological problem, and another Bangar would come up in his place. So that's the story, and we're going to talk to Ritlock about what just happened and what we saw.
You had me worried, observing a formative moment in the past, or whatever Aurene said. It was like you were awake and asleep at the same time. Talking to yourself, not making sense. You kept saying names. Bangar. Almora. Anyway, seems like you're back to your old commandery self. commander wants to talk to me? I'm honored.
You had something you wanted to tell me?
Yeah, Kree's got some updates from the front lines. Bangar's forces have trekked pretty far north. He's almost made it to Jormag, and when that happens, well, no one knows. Krisha's got all the Imperators playing nice. For now. Things will only get worse from here. Bangar's a piece of work, but without him, there's a power vacuum. I know Kree can handle herself, but when the fighting gets ugly, she's gonna need our support. Things are kind of a mess right now.
Ryland was there when Almora. He gave her a proper burial.
Is that what you saw in? Thanks for letting me know. Bangar's got his claws in Ryland like a damn puppet. But Ryland's not him. I'm glad that Soulkeeper was a warrior to the end. We didn't always see eye to eye, but she's the truest Charr there is.
Alright.
Things are kind of a mess right now.
And so we're interested in the dynamic here. So Ritlock also recognizes that Ryland isn't Bangar. There's daylight between them at this point. He just doesn't understand what that daylight is at this point, and that's where we get in trouble later. But
I used to see Bangar as a mentor. That's what he does. Makes you feel like he's the only one who sees your true potential. The Farrar was rough. Serving Bangar, becoming his tribune, thought that'd make it all better. He used that against me. And now he's doing the same with Ryland. Ryland didn't go through what I did. I made sure of that. But after Bangar sent me away, I can't help thinking I could have stopped all this. If I'd just been there.
so here we see that, like, what could I have done dynamic that comes up a lot in the Icebrood Saga. Is like, what could I have done? Why I wasn't there for this. I could have stopped this, could have stopped that. I failed as a leader, blardy bardy bar. And so now we've set ourselves up with this, with the first failure, which was Bram losing his bow, and then us getting hurt by Bangar and Ryland in the ice cave below the lake. And so now we're walking into the situation that's been exacerbated by our failures with the Charr Civil War. And so that's where this next episode starts with
We didn't save Cantha standing
order.
around, did we, Victor?
I don't want to talk to
We
you.
certainly did not, though I'd prefer it if you called me by my full title.
Apologies.
I say the whole
Most
thing
revered
anyway.
Saint Victor of Tuhilta.
And so if we read the Visions of the Past, Steel and Fire dialogue, it says, to aid in my understanding of the current conflict, right? So that's the point. To aid in the understanding of the current conflict, Aurene asked me to share in a vision she had seen of the recent past. I focused on the scrying pool and found myself reliving a memory of Ryland's warband as they fought to establish a supply line for Bangar's forces. Alright, and then we go into Darkheim Delve. As I went deeper into the vision, I saw Bangar's movements firsthand through the eyes of Ryland's Steelcatcher. Bangar and Ryland attempted to find a shortcut through the Darkheim Delves, but encountered resistance, and Almora's Soulkeeper along the way. Through the eyes of Ryland, I witnessed the talks break down between Almora and Bangar as they searched for the exit. Now the two stand toe-to-toe as Almora intends on stopping Bangar from trying to become Jormag's champion. Ryland reluctantly steps in and must make a choice. It was Bangar who had killed General Soulkeeper. Sorry, it was Bangar who had killed General Soulkeeper in a moment's fury. Seeing his plans and ambitions firsthand has reinforced my resolve. Ruinbringer must be stopped. So right, again, the whole point of this episode is, I mean, like, if we look at it from a developer standpoint, it's to buy time a little bit, but it's also very well done. They spent money on it, right? There's a nice cutscene in there that they used. And so it's not always that. It's not just that. There's lots of stuff. There's lots of collections, lots of things to do. A very complicated and intricate strike mission / DRM hybrid that they introduced that lets us learn more about these characters, so that when we go into this next chapter, which is really heavy on the politics and the talking and just like understanding what this dynamic is, we're not completely lost. And so, yep. So that's Visions of the Past, and now we go into No Quarter, which is us. So we've decided to go confront Bangar, and now how do we go about that?
Ritlock, Got a message from Krisha. Ryland's called for a parley?
Yeah, his warband's been leading Bangar's army for a while now. This war's taking too long, and Bangar's managed to throw too many bodies between us and him.
Maybe Ryland will be reasonable. Give us a chance to move some of those bodies out of the line of fire.
You'll see. I'm your ride. Meet me at the Eye of the North.
So this is a really interesting moment that a lot of people miss, is that in this letter it says that Ryland has proposed a parley with the Imperators, right? So Ryland's the one looking to end this conflict now, which is interesting, right? Is Bangar's not looking to end the conflict necessarily, but Ryland is looking now as the like de facto military leader of this mission through the Steel Warband and their moves in this region against the United Legions. He's looking for a parley with them now, and so Krisha and Ritlock and us are like, ooh, this is our chance. And we know this. We know that the loyalty between Bangar and Ryland is broken down because we were just in an instance where we saw that and experienced it firsthand. It's like it's such good character storytelling, and I hate that Icebrood Saga gets memed on all the time because it's so good. Like this whole expanse is some of the best story content in the entire game without question, and it's crazy that Icebrood Saga just gets lumped into this like champions like psychosis that goes on in the community where like everybody's mad about champions and how the story resolved, and so this stuff gets lost and we don't remember stuff. And so one thing I wanted to mention here as we go into this episode, since we're talking about Cinder and whether or not her presence in the Gayala Delve arc is pertinent, is something that I think has hurt that story from resonating very well with players, is that this was the first no voice acting chapter, and so a lot of players, especially a lot of veteran players, experienced this with no voice acting and never went back to replay it, and so they just don't have the level of immersion and engagement with the content wasn't high because of the no voice acting, and it's a really good insight into how this game would work with no voice acting, and it's like, please keep all the voice acting. Very good, very necessary for people understanding the story. Like, if you think people don't get the story now, imagine if the voice acting was gone all the time. It'd be awful. No one would know a single thing. You'd have people being like, Mordermoth died? They'd be like asking like the most, even more crazy questions than they're asking about the lore now. And so very much pro voice acting, and I think that's one of the reasons why this next story, which is going to feature Cinder heavily, people don't remember it very well. It's because they experienced it with no voice acting.
Ritlock, how long since you've been on the front?
Yeah, not for a couple of weeks. Krisha's had me doing some recon through the homelands. Better get a move on. Parleys mean politicians. I'd rather be close enough to have Kree's back.
Right to the front line. So, for whatever reason, we're going to be part of this Charr parlay. And I can't remember if Krisha says why she wants us there. Let's see. Yeah, so they just mentioned that he's been leading the army for a while. There's not much mention of why we're involved, but that's just like part of how the story is delivered. We're involved. So here we go, pointed parlay.
Commander, Ritlock, good to have you here. Steelcatcher arrived already, and the talk's underway.
I expected to see more troops. Did you clear out base camp for the parley?
Unfortunately, our alliance has been bleeding defectors day and night.
Defectors? Still?
Worse since you left. Steelcatcher's forces are impressive, and they've come at us with a propaganda assault too.
That can't be good for morale. or your forward momentum.
It's not. We've lost ground as well as troops to the enemy.
Where's the new front line?
You're walking through it.
Ryland holds both lanes?
And everything in between.
What's going on?
Any last words?
Schmoder. He said they'd stop these until the outcome of the parley. Mercy!
Charr above fire!
What the hell?
Schmoder's standard operating procedure for dealing with his Iron Legion defectors.
He knows the point of this war is to save the Charr, right?
Apparently he's big on battlefield justice. But that's iron business.
Killing him in a fair fight's one thing. They made a choice to change sides. But this, it's a waste.
It's slaughter.
Let's work for a swift end to this war, then.
So Smoder's kind of lost it in his move to be more palatable to the Charr, but he doesn't really understand.
Announce your surrender and proclaim your support of Bangar's campaign.
You've had some luck, but the tides of war are fickle. You can't expect to keep what you've taken.
Leave and live. Don't know how much plainer I can make it. To you or your packed friends.
Centurion.
Tribune, Steelcatcher. He's earned it.
Yeah, I can see the scars. I'm here to save lives, Tribune. How many Charr have died already?
Then tell the Imperators to accept this offer.
You forget you're up against the greatest military leaders of the legions.
Most of Iron now marches with Dominion forces under my command.
Bangar's Dominion forces. The Tribune's power is but a taste of Bangar's reach. Next, an Elder Dragon.
This is Bangar's war. He'll lead our people to ruin. But he can't without Ryland. Move aside so we can stop him.
Take the territory and hold it. I've accomplished my mission and more. I'm offering you mercy at my own discretion.
If you let Bangar wake Jormag, he will destroy us all. Be smart.
Excuse us, Imperators. Is this a bad time?
I offered a parley out of respect, but it's clear your allegiances are askew.
Tribune Steel...
Offer rescinded. See you on the battlefield.
Damn it! Who the hell are you?
Krisha, this is Logan Thackeray. Logan, Tribune Krisha Stoneglow.
Great to finally meet an old friend of Redlock's.
Not the time. Commander, take a seat. We need to strategize.
Alright, so lots of things happened, right? So we start to see this new dynamic with Ryland, where he's the de facto military leader right now. And so you heard the pushback from Verenia, or whatever, what's her name? Yeah, Verenia, Storm Sounder. And so she's like, this is Bangar's might, and Ryland's just a piece of that. But Krisha knows that Ryland is all the power of Dominion right now, and so if she could get him to step aside, they could take out Bangar and reunite the Charr. And you also hear Ryland mention that he's here at his own discretion. He made the decision to come parley with them. It was not part of his orders. He just wanted to do that. And but they couldn't get past the kind of speciesism angle here, where the humans showed up, and so that kind of puts Ryland off because he's very indoctrinated in the anti-human propaganda that Bangar's been pushing, and so he feels in some ways insulted, but also feels a little trapped in the situation now with both our commander, who's not a Charr, and now these other humans coming in, and so it just feels like there's this schism in his head of where loyalties lie between all these different Charr in this conversation. So now we have to play diplomat.
What are you doing here, Logan?
The Queen sent us with a troop of Seraph to repay Kryda's debt to the Blood Legion.
Your memorable arrival aside, I speak for the Imperators when I say we are grateful to have you and Lady Casimir with us.
Could you give the politicking a rest?
You didn't complain when I brokered our treaty with Ebonhawk.
Oh, you do like to tell that story. Repeatedly. Your point?
So we're gonna get them to stay on topic.
We'll never make it to Bangar if we don't regain the territory. We've got to get past Ryland's forces.
Take a subtler approach. Gather intel, find their weak spots.
Ash, you move in the shadows, collecting secrets you share when you feel like it. Head on and face to face. That's how you win wars. Dominion's weakest spot is they're wrong and we're right.
And so there's this game you can play of like who you side with in this conversation, and there's lots of intricacies to it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to defer. We're not going to try to make decisions for them, so we're going to defer to Krisha here.
We don't have the numbers anymore. Head to head, we'll lose. We have to rethink our strategy.
The right war machine's worth 50 bodies any day.
No matter how good your machines are, we'll never retake the beach. Not without infantry in the trenches.
And who's going to build them? You keep shooting your defectors.
So let's abandon the forest and focus on retaking the beach.
And so our question should be about the resources.
My legion's mostly intact. We can add our magics to Smolder's munitions. Should give an edge.
Seraph regulars could easily add the iron and flame forces on the beach, right?
A smaller, mobile force would use the forest terrain to our advantage. Ryland won't expect the change in tactics.
Some of the Seraphs share mesmer abilities. Malice could factor us in.
Maybe it's time to teach the Cubs a few new tricks.
Alright, so we established a strategy, and so we can either focus on our firepower and retake the beach, or use guerrilla warfare, but our best strategy is to use every tactic and every resource everywhere.
The commander is right. We're calling ourselves the United Legions. We need to walk the walk. Blood, ash, and Nesmers in the forest.
And flame, iron, and Seraph regulars on the beach. It's a good plan.
Seems reasonable.
Very well. Do your thing, Sword Shadow. On the beach, we'll show Dominion's forces, and our own, what it means to be Charr.
We've got a mission and a strategy. Commander, I'll meet you in Ritlock at the Blood Legion bivouac.
Alright. So there's that conversation, and so here we are in the Charr Civil War, on this new map, on this new front with the Charr. Peace negotiations just failed, partially our fault, partially Logan's fault, and we're walking into this kind of powder keg dynamic where Smolder's kind of being unhinged and trying to like establish himself as the de facto leader when he's really not. Ryland is the de facto leader for the Dominion, even though Bangar is the catalyst for this move towards the north, towards Jormag, and then you've got us who are just trying to stop Bangar. Our goal is to deal with Bangar. Krisha's goal is to deal with Bangar, and then same with Ephraim and Malice and Ritlock, and Logan and Casimir as well. But then Smolder's kind of just trying to establish military might, and it's not really. It's not that he doesn't understand the situation. He's just being obstinate because he's trying to show his power. But it's not going to work, so. Alright, so here we are in Drizzlewood Coast and on the battlefield, and I think this is where I'm going to stop for today, and we'll continue with this conversation later, because I think we've established so far that, like, Cinder exists, right? She exists. Of course, the dynamic is more about Krisha, Ritlock, Ryland, and Bangar, right? Those are the four main players. But Cinder is this, she's a piece on the board that is a catalyst for a lot of the plot in this episode specifically, and so next time I'm going to play through this episode, and then we're going to go to Gyala and combine all of our experiences here through these two parts and determine okay, were the sentiments that we saw in the Icebrood Saga fitting for the experience we had in Giala Delve, where we're collecting memories and trying to process our history and our past? And was Cinder the appropriate Charr to do that with? And so, yep, that'll be it for now. I'll see you guys in the next part whenever I decide to do that. Yep, later.